All right. Hello, everyone. I am so excited about this open mic tonight. We have a whole new list of poets who haven't been here before, so that's always exciting. Um, so just a little bit about Minneapolis Poetry Sanctuary. It's a community that I started in June um, for poets from all over the world and creative writers. And it's a place where we can support each other, a place where we can share our writing, a place where we can inspire each other. So I encourage you to check out the Facebook page if you haven't. Minneapolis Poetry Sanctuary is the Facebook page. We also have a YouTube channel, which is under the same name. And I also have an Instagram account linked as well. I host a online open mic through Zoom twice a month on the second Sunday and the fourth Sunday. And yeah, it's great. It's growing quickly. I've had people from all over the world so far. So yeah, we're just gonna jump right in since we've got a whole list of people. So Linnea, welcome. Please share a little bit about yourself and where you live, and then share some of your poems.
Okay, my name is Linnea, and I live in Illinois, but I grew up in Detroit, and I really just write for myself. Maybe it's therapy. Yeah, that's what I do. So, sorry, I'm a little nervous. So yeah, I just write about myself. I write about my family, and so I guess I could say a trigger warning for I'll read two things that I've written. And the first one is I was inspired by Gwendolyn Brooks' poem, My Grandmother is Waiting for Me to Come Home. And the first line really got me, and it made me think about my dad who died very young. So I'll start with that. My dad is waiting for me to come home. We eat chicken pot pies, sometimes a homemade roast, TV dinners, sometimes stuffed cabbage cooked a long time in the oven. It all depends if mom works overtime at the factory. We are red rose tea, pierogies from church, and the stale smell of a beer keg. The best way, by the way, to pour a cold one is to tip the glass ever so slightly as you pull the lever and pour. You won't get too much foam or a head on your beer that way. Shakespeare, Dickens, and poetry live politely in shelves at the top of the staircase. Dean Martin, Chopin, and rock and roll roam everywhere else in the house because they never knock on doors. They just barge right in. But before you know it, they're your best friends. My dad sits in his wheelchair watching for me. He has a private window to his small world outside. His last cigarette has burned down to the butt, and it's about to singe his nicotine-stained fingers. His black hair is in contrast to my golden blonde curls. He looks at me through his chocolate browns. I feel his conflict to my eyes, which are too big and too blue. We live in the fourth house from the corner. On the corner is a store where you can buy penny candy and any flavor of Faygo Pop, and a pack of cigarettes if your dad sends you with 35 cents. Now, if you turn left from my house, go past the prickly bush with blackberries, follow the cracked sidewalk, one more left, and you're there. It's so easy, even an 8-year-old like me can do it. Don't turn left too soon or you'll end up in the alley. Don't turn left too late or you'll end up in the busy road. Do I love my dad? He's waiting for me to come home. I got 35 cents in my pocket, and his last cigarette has burned down to the butt, and it's about to singe his nicotine-stained fingers. I better hurry. And that poem was just inspired by Gwendolyn Brooks, and I love her. My second one is also has my dad and my three brothers, and all of them have passed away much too young. And I was surprised by the question. And so that's what this one is about. When I was growing up, there was always music and there were always stories. Sometimes the two collided or became the same thing. I can hear my dad's harmonica. My dad's harmonica was his novel, written in lulls and bys, crying and whys. It was the saddest book I ever heard. I can hear my dad and his brothers drinking and laughing in the other room. Or were they crying? I can hear the lyrical stories they told, the sing-song Romanian words I didn't quite understand, pulling me further and further into the refrain. My heart listened, my heart laughed, or was it crying? I can hear the pending earthquake from the basement below. My brother Paul told his story with every beat on his drum set. He heard voices in his head. He didn't invite them, but they came pounding relentlessly on his door anyway. He was a sparrow who was afraid of his own story, but his drums shouted it to the world. My heart questioned the whys of it, and my heart ached. I can hear Greg's fingers slide along his guitar strings. His beautiful baritone voice waited in the wings patiently, while his guitar spoke with perfect eloquence. My heart listened to his short story, and my heart wishes his life had been a long novel instead. I can hear Nick's final vinyl record spinning round and round the turntable. I can hear his velvety voice through the radio while he made people laugh for miles around. My heart laughed with them, but my heart also heard his whispering cries and felt the dampness of his invisible tears. In my heart, a song is a story, and a story can be a song. My heart is a massive pile-up collision of all of these songs and stories. That one. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linnea. You did awesome, and I'm so glad that you're here. You really have some powerful stories to share, so I'm grateful for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just the connection of, you know, expression through art and music is so important, and that's such a huge part of even myself too, and why I'm passionate about this project, because I couldn't survive without my creative outlets. So thank you so much, Linnea. Let me see here. Up next, we have Jessi Marie. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing your poems.
Thank you for having me. So I'm Jessi Marie. You can find my poetry at Jessi Marie_poetry at Instagram. I'm really doing my page, so I'm going to take some content down, upload some new stuff in a new way, kind of this like creative awakening vision in the new year. So, but a little bit about me. I am a transplant here to Minnesota via Michigan by way of Colorado. I also grew up in Detroit. So Linnea, some of your stuff really resonated with me. I grew up in a foster home, and then I was adopted, and so my childhood was very interesting and unique in a lot of ways. I'm a mom to 3 daughters. I'm a mental health nurse, and I'm also an Army veteran. And so there's just a lot there, and so I write about all of those experiences. Some of the content in my poetry tonight will be triggering, so I am putting out a trigger warning. I write about childhood abuse. I write about, teaching children now about racism. I write about mothering, struggling with mothering, the great parts of mothering, and military experiences and things like that. And so it's just kind of like I do this, as a way of therapy. I had a therapist one time that told me to journal, and it started coming out as poetry, and I haven't stopped since. So thank you so much for having me. The first poem I'm going to read is from a book that I was published in last year called Rocked by the Waters, Poems of Motherhood. And I like this one a lot. It was probably the most vulnerable poem I've ever written, but I got placed on page 29, which is the age I was when I became a mother. And so I just kind of thought that was really serendipitous. It's called My Daughter, My Hero. I will not tell my daughter how my childhood left me afraid at night, lying in bed, tucking my patchwork quilt around my small body, making believe that it would protect me from an older brother's sexual desire. I will not tell my daughter how I was ignored for being curious, hurt for asking too many questions, punished by being locked in a basement for hours, forgotten in the cold northern Michigan darkness. I will not tell my daughter about the sadness I had to have a biological mother who had addictions stronger than her ability to care for my sister and me, or that being adopted didn't mean becoming part of a loving family. I will not tell my daughter how I joined the Army as a means to get away, but being in the Army was both a blessing and a curse, an opportunity to be seen while trying to stay hidden behind the camouflage. I will not tell my daughter how terrified I was of becoming her mother, worried of making similar mistakes, staying awake at night, reading every parenting book, rubbing my growing belly, and praying I would get it right. I will not tell my daughter these things that left me feeling broken inside. I will not tell her until the time is right. So until then, I will tell her, I love you every chance I can. I will tell my daughter how I hope she grows to have her mother's resilience to overcome the parts of life that are hard while embracing and accepting the good. I will tell my daughter how I kissed her tiny face above the bridge of her nose because my lips fit perfectly in that space. I will tell her how I sang Wagon Wheel and You Are My Sunshine to lull her to sleep. I will tell my daughter that my heart grew when she was born, and for the first time, I felt a love so deep, I knew we would be okay. I will tell my daughter that I will fight for her without question, that the world is hers to explore, that she should never settle for anything less than she deserves, because she is worthy. I will tell my daughter that she is smart, brave, and full of wonder. I will tell her that she has taught me how to be a mother, and being a mother has taught me about love, and together it has helped making me be whole. I will tell her how she saved my life. Thank you. The next one I'm going to read, I actually started working on this last night and finished it today. The death anniversary of my biological mother is coming up in early February, and I wrote this thinking about that. What I would say if she were still alive. I wish I could have been there when you died, when you took your last breath. I would have held your hand to comfort you so you didn't feel alone. There's a litany of things I would say to you, starting with, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't give you a chance. I only saw my hurt. I didn't give you the grace where it was needed. Mothering is hard. I know that now. I feel it every day. I'm sorry that you didn't get to be my mother. I'm sorry that no one helped you enough for you to see that you were bigger than your addictions and to tell you that you are worthy. You didn't get to be there for the milestones, the laughter, the kisses, the bright early morning energy, baths and matching jammies. Some of my favorite things about motherhood. I wish I could have gotten to know you, but I kept you at arm's length. I didn't see you as my mother. I see it now. It took 10 years of you being gone. It took me deep diving and healing my trauma. It took me becoming a mother. I didn't see your apology as an amends, an offer to start over. I apologize to my children freely. They accept without judgment. We didn't get that opportunity to repair because I judged you for your decisions in life, yet your life gave me mine. It has taught me more than you'll ever know. I didn't know enough about forgiveness. I do now. I'm sorry. The next one is also a little of emotional piece. I wrote this for my grandmother. She passed away while I was in Iraq, and so I never got to come back for her funeral or really get like a proper goodbye. So it's called Forgotten. You were found at your Creekside home in Michigan. I scheduled a visit from college, but when I arrived, you didn't know who I was. You called me Linda, my cousin, and asked when I got a different car. Medication bottles were disorganized on your countertop in your kitchen. A reheated cup of coffee sat waiting. In the microwave lay a piece of toast, reheated, forgotten, reheated, forgotten. Troubled, I called your son. My uncle came, and in 2 weeks' time, you were moved across the country to live in Texas in a care home, trying to remember who you were. I went to visit you where you lived, in that memory care home in Texas. It was a good day, and you remembered who I was. You asked if I could take you home to Michigan. You told me you were so proud of me, graduating college, joining the Army. I didn't have the heart to tell you I was going to war. Thousands of miles from home, in war-torn Iraq, I received the Red Cross message. They let me know you were no longer here. My sister was able to tell you, I love you, before you left. You were the daughter of immigrant parents that settled in the hills of Tennessee. You were a war riveter during World War II. You worked as an assembly line operator for Ford Motor Company in Detroit, Michigan. You were a survivor of domestic abuse. You kissed my lips on hellos and goodbyes. You called me sweetie. You were a lover of Yahtzee and black coffee. You made my childhood blanket a sacred patchwork quilt. You were the mother of my mother. You were my favorite person. I've never been able to say goodbye. You remain in my heart. You are thought of often. My oldest daughter carries your name, Emma. You will never be forgotten. I'm a crier, and that was the first time I've ever read that out loud, so I wasn't quite expecting that. Oh.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So the next one I wrote a couple of months after George Floyd's death. I just one day was in my kitchen and just like broke down crying and thinking about, oh my God, my kids, how am I going to teach this to my children? How am I going to teach my children to be good people and change the narrative for all of this? And so I wrote this poem. It's called Mothering Young Children in 2020. I'm trying to be a good mother, a kind and just mother, better than any example I was given. I'm trying, but I'm tired. Coronavirus, distance learning, essential healthcare worker, divorce, death, racism, riots. Our city is burning and angry. I'm angry. I'm trying to stay calm yet informed. I'm teaching my children human rights, that Black lives matter, to explain the difference between peace and hate. In the evening, when the whining gets under my skin, when there's more demands than gratitude, I gather my patience and remind my children, we are lucky, we are safe, we are privileged, while our neighbors are without. They don't understand yet. I remind myself they are young. They are good-hearted, compassionate girls. Will that make a difference? Will that be enough? At night, I try to sleep. Instead, I read, I write, I cry. My heart is carrying the weight of an unknown future. I still have hope, gratitude, fear. The dichotomy stirs my soul. I pray for everyone who is weary. I won't rest. And then the last one I will read is one that I wrote after my littlest daughter was born. She's going to be 4 on the 29th, so she's not so little anymore. And I kind of was like really having a hard time with that the other day. So I thought I would share this one. I've never read this one out loud either. It's called A Place for You. I held a place for you in the womb that nourished you for 39 weeks. In my heart and in my mind, in my breath, my existence, as I wondered what and who you were. I held you in my thoughts, in my dreams. I held you in the hope of what you would become, do, and be. I held you without knowing, and for that, I loved you more. For 5 weeks before your arrival, I held you in rest, turning off the noise of every day so you could grow and we could be healthy. Bed rest was not easy for me. You stopped time. You made it clear that I needed to be, not do. Then the day came for you to arrive, scheduled time, cesarean section. At 10:04 a.m., you stopped time again. A girl, 8 pounds, 11 ounces, with a head full of dark hair. With a beeping of medical machines and obstetricians counting instruments, they placed you at my cheek. For a moment, there was silence. It was just us, holding space. Now I hold a place for you, on my chest, in my arms, in my heart, and I wait with wonder for you to become and be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessi. Wow. The fact that you haven't read some of those even aloud before, I just feel so blessed and grateful that you could share those with us tonight. Really powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do want to encourage everyone, you may not know this or not, but people are commenting on here in the chat. So I'd love for you to all read that so you can hear what people are saying about your poems. Also, I encourage you later to post on the live video on the Facebook page some comments, because this unfortunately won't transfer, just so we can continue the love and just inspiration of these poems. Let me see here. So up next, we have Patrick Cabello Hansel. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing your poems.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I am in South Minneapolis, and I'm going to read from a couple of books. The first one is called The Devouring Land. I don't know if you can see it. But the first third, more than a third, is about immigrants that I've worked with. I just retired. My wife and I were pastors of immigrant congregations. I for 35 years in the Bronx and Philly, and now in South Minneapolis. And so the photograph on the cover was taken by a dreamer who's now going to a 4-year private college, the first of her family who came to the U.S. When she was 8 months old. And the people here are a married couple from Chile and from Brazil. And so I'm going to read a couple of stories. The first one is called Crossing with My Brother, and it's for a young woman who's now in her 20s, but who crossed when she was 10 years old, across the border to come to the United States. Crossing with my brother. Before coyotes grew knives for fingers and narcos snapped up any girl they could, we crossed. I was 10 and we had enough water. The desert was not as lonely as I wished. Woodpeckers skittered across the cactus. Rattlesnakes warmed on the rocks. I held the river inside me, my mom leaving when I was 1, the burden my grandmother wished over me, the land I was told to fear. They didn't have to tell me to be quiet when we hid. Miguel held my hand like my angel, but like all angels, he kept most words to himself. At night, when we walked through the desert, the sky would glow to the north as if all the stars had gathered to sing. Abuela told me I had a good voice, but many nights my throat feels like a shadow. My brother went back, and I miss his hand. I miss the land I can barely remember. I like to walk in the snow. It seems to answer my steps, not with words, but as if wishing that I might find home, that I might let the river run wild. The next one is about, well, I hope it's going to become another great Chinese restaurant. The Chinese restaurant we go to was 2 blocks north of Lake Street, and it survived the first riots this summer, but then was firebombed when the unrest happened after the man committed suicide when he was being chased by the police downtown, and they're not sure if they're going to make it. But I did the wedding for these people. It was the strangest wedding I ever did. It was in the detention center in Bloomington on Good Friday. You don't usually do a wedding on Good Friday morning. And the name of the woman was Grace, and she was there with her 5-month-old baby. Her husband was about to be deported. Fortunately, he's back now. But before he left, they run this little Chinese restaurant. He made a little counter bed for their daughter Abigail under the counter of the restaurant, so she could be there while they're working 12, 14 hours a day. So this is called Abigail Lives in a Box. Abigail lives under the counter in a box her father made before he was hauled off to deportee detention. She stares at her mother's legs as she takes orders back to the kitchen, brings steaming plates of General Tso and Happy Family out to customers. Abby is the Buddha of chopped sticks and steamed rice, the 2 alphabets of her family dancing over a greasy wok. She is Bodhisattva's cat licking her paws. Abigail will grow her wings and words as an American. Her feet may walk the halls of Congress. Her hands build bridges that have washed away. But consider now her monkey-shod toes, squirming around in footsie pajamas. Consider her hands' love of noses, the coo of pardon she makes with her voice, the soft furnace of her sleep. Abigail is not angry that she lives in a box under the counter. Months go by, onions are chopped, petitions fail, lips spill soup on the small tables. Abby can still smell her father's hands laying carpet in her little cell, tacking soft fabric on the walls, sticking each wayward nail. There is comfort in a job well done. There is family like sweat and wind. And then I'm going to read, thank you. This is the new book that's coming out February. The launch is going to be February 18th, and I'll put a link. It's Next Chapter Booksellers is doing the Zoom launch of this book on February 18th. So this is all about, it's called Quitting Time. It's all about my father, who was the son of immigrants and who only spoke German. He was born in 1912. So I'm going to read a couple of poems that have to do with what language meant to him and what language meant to his country that he was born in. First one is called Mother Tongue. 1917 was a bad year to go to kindergarten in Langdon, North Dakota, speaking only German. Our father told us the teacher threatened with the back of the hand each ja or nein that slipped from little lips. The children sat in wooden rows and listened to the tick of time fall from her teeth as half a world away, blood was spilled over ground that all claimed and no man held. Imagine that 5-year-old, uncertain in his farm pants and the best shoes of a family, playing in the dirt outside the schoolhouse, carving the alphabet with a stick, making his sagas out of dust. Then the 3 claps, calling the children into lines. He wipes his palms on the air. He looks forward to wisdom. What do you say when you are 5 years old and the son and grandson of the enemy? Guten Morgen is what his bright blue eyes are shining, but his lips tremble at the fear of the Lord incarnate in an American Fraulein whose brother is being shot at over the ocean and over dirt that holds no one's claim. She has stern knowledge of how the world should turn and which children should laugh. She has standards in her hands. But this child has no way to distinguish yes from guess or past from pest. He is unwelcome guest in the land and county of his birth. Watch him as history's slow march tramps the ground, how he tries to wrap his synapses in the sinews of his mouth around the new tongue and the dirt it was born out of. Watch his tongue, watch his hand. So he came home telling his father that he had been threatened to be hit if he spoke German, and they said, from now on, we're only going to speak English at home because they were afraid of being ostracized, but he kept his German up. My father had a really challenging life. His mom died when he was 12 and their barn burned that same day. They were farm, same year. So he had to drop out of school to take care of his brothers and sisters. He was the oldest. He was homeless for a while in the Depression. He worked in the CCC and then he enlisted in the Army. And then he served in Germany during the war and in the occupation as an anti-aircraft gunner. And this is one of the stories. Most men from that time did not tell a lot about what happened in the war, but he told me this story and he told my other brothers and sister other stories. So this is called Falling. A man hung from his parachute like a seed softly whirligigging down, shouting, "Don't shoot, I surrender." In the tongue of the enemy, your first tongue. He had no way to reach his weapon, but the men under you did. And in a minute, though your voice was raised and your rank commanded obedience, it was the county fair in Shreveport, in Pembina, in New Ulm, and New Prague. Step right up, everyone wins a prize. The lights flashing, the girls, all giggles and bullets, and a ribbon for the man who hits the nose. Then silence, the head of the boy on his chest, his body limp in its harness, gravity doing its work. The son of German cousins, maybe the grandson of your grandfather's friend, spoiled blood over his uniform. Father, why did you tell me this story and not my brother's? Your memories are like your hands, big, calloused, open. His boots, newly shined, pulled him down to the earth he finally met as a shroud, a nothing, a home. Your men did not speak. They held their rifles across their chests as if bearing 6 children. And then I'm going to read the title poem of the book called Quitting Time. My father was a barber, and I was one of 3 brothers, so every third work day, I left home at 5:40 to go down and sweep up the hair on my father's shop and then walk back with him. And so this is a poem about quitting time. I sweep up the hair that lies like pigeon's feathers on my father's shop floor. Callahan's red mixed with the dark Slavinskys and Knauers and Rishavis, and one blonde Swede who must have snuck in just before 5. His candied fleece shimmers on top of the pile. Dad double counts the till and snaps caps back onto brown bottles of tonic and grunts with the weight of the day. And all the men who sat in the chair while he plied their heads with scissors and razors and combs, the men from the plant, still aching from cutting hogs and steers into bite-sized pieces, the men who smoke Camel Straights and hit their kids because God says it's good for them, because their hands were tied behind their backs by fathers whose tongues were stolen from them when they crossed the sea, all of them have trailed off into the twilight like fog, leaving their hair to sparkle under my broom as my father and I work in silence and in hope of wings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I'm definitely going to put those books on my list of, I have a list going of books I need to buy. So thank you so much. So up next here, we have Cynthia Wold. Welcome.
Thank you, Frances. Thank you for having me. And I just want to thank the previous poets for their vulnerability and poignancy. It's just a treat to listen. I live in Minneapolis, in South Minneapolis as well. I'm sitting in my dining room, and I host a writing group, a writing forum called Scribbled River that you can find on Facebook. I don't have a website, but I have a Facebook page, and we write together in community. So I have 3 poems today. I try to do other kinds of writing, but it always comes out a poem. So that's what I really have a passion for. These 3 are what I chose to read tonight. The first one is called Boredom. I don't notice the cold moon kissing my blood, or the wind taking breath to Wisconsin, or the sky running dew from a southern plain, when flakes of frozen water melted on my face last April, while the sun fired lasers under leaking clouds. I stood on a step and fretted my nails. I propelled for miles in comfort in a metallic bubble, controlled temperature, music, or talk from thousands of miles. I moved by pressing a pedal on a path to everywhere. A box in my kitchen contains portals, 2 different climates, frozen or cold. The inner light knows when to glow. A fire table and vibration box warm my food. I wait for something special to happen and don't notice I'm perched on a planet wildly careening through space in a house bombarded by particles from a fiery star, worlds birthing and dying in every direction. I don't notice the air offering gifts each second and light breaking like a watermelon under my gaze. I don't notice any of this. I sit on the cusp of infinity and wonder, how long will it take to do the laundry? What is the title of that song in my head? Or what movie will I watch tonight? Thank you. This next one is called Things I Don't Remember. Things I don't remember stick to my feet like onion skins, spilled wine, and cast outs that miss the trash. They lean close to take my temperature and hide in the folds of winter socks. I am called to order from an empty menu, soft whispers heard behind my back. They visit with a suitcase full of beehive kisses and tattered string, looking for a finger. I receive scraps, a bell, a red hat, the smell of an infant's hair, something too hot to touch. Decoys that carry me home to a house of mirrors wrapped in newsprint, while they, full and complete, take a seat next to me and tell the world who I am. Thank you. The last is called Cemetery Walk. And this is Lakewood Cemetery in Minneapolis, if that makes any difference. I walk past the cemetery often, at times only a broken fence or volunteer trees between me and the dead. I know some of them, or knew. Now their bodies do what the dead do under beautiful landscapes. Sometimes I go in just to walk or sit on a bench by the pond. You're not supposed to use the cemetery for recreation, only grieving or ceremony. So I try not to smile too much when I'm there. But I imagine the dead people glad to have a visitor in a good mood once in a while. One time I went there and saw love on a tombstone, not sure whether it was a name or a command. The stone faced the road so lots of people could see it. Love, just love, reminded me why we have graves. That day, the weeping willows near the pond looked like a dancing bride and bridesmaids, and a tall, groomed white birch stood upright, birdful, and waiting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. And I agree, it has just been a pleasure and a gift to hear everybody's poems as well as yours. So thank you for being here. Up next, we have William Lessard.
It's Lessard, actually, but that's okay.
No, thank you
It's all
for
right.
correcting me.
It's all right.
Sorry. Okay.
It's cool. It's cool. So like Cynthia said a few moments ago, I want to thank everyone for, their vulnerability and their honesty. And I'd also like to thank you, Francis, for bringing us all together this evening. I'm going to read some pretty strong stuff. So, the trigger warning is basically everything. I'm in New York, in case you couldn't figure that out by my accent. And, I've had my work published in some fancy places, but I'm not very fancy myself. This is kind of like a hybrid experimental essay type thing. It's part of a series that I've been writing. This was called Grief Place .txt. When my mother died, I counted the years she had free of my father. 28. As many years as they were married, and yet she always seemed to be waiting for him. All his clothes in the closet, his car parked the same 6 inches from the shed. Joan Didion writes of her year of magical thinking, expecting John Gregory Dunn to return to finish his steak. For my mother, the waiting extended across decades. She didn't press his photo to her chest, but she did miss the purpose he gave. Chaos, pain. Its signature, the outline of fingers slapped across the cheek. A girlfriend from grad school visits a few months after my father's funeral. At the end of the visit, when I'm taking her to the bus station, she remarks that my father's cigarette butts logjam the ashtray in the living room. At that moment, I realize she had never been found guilty of drinking a cup of tea. When Mike Kelly strung thrift store rag dolls and stuffed animals from a canvas, he was mapping the territory of abuse. Each doll a tiny parcel holding the sweat and tears of their former owners. Bodies sewn head to toe, toe to head, between a scream of blanket. Like Rauschenberg's bed from a generation prior, more love hours than can be repaid, 1987, unspools yellow tape around the scene, marks the site where the victim nightly anticipates recurrence. Sometimes I think of myself as one of Kelly's plush familiars, a neon blue bunny waving the world over for a tour of my objections. Here the shirt button eye that smells like nicotine. Here the shoelace lip tied with curses. In studies of mothers raising children in the shadow of war, researchers find wave patterns known as gamma oscillations in the brain's visceromotor cortex. The waves are neural markers for the toll chronic, unpredictable stress takes on the mother's social brain. On a behavioral level, the damage expresses itself as reduced attentiveness to the child's welfare, reduced parent-child synchronicity. The final years of my mother's life, a building collapsing from within, walls falling against walls, walls falling against floors, the building hollowed into a pile of wood and dust, the outer walls still standing. My father was from a mining village in Canada with a cathedral rising from its center. When he cleaned his shoes on the US side of the border, he could still feel all that stone, all that stained glass. It was the same pressure I felt every night, waiting for him to come home. Car entering the driveway at an off angle, headlights lighting the opposite side of the yard, bumper too close to the neighbor's fence, or if I wasn't quick enough to watch from the rear bedroom, a heavy step on the porch, loud chiming, keys, curses. These were his tells. Many nights I'd go to bed fully dressed. Others I'd wake to pounding, doors, dishes, the too hot top of the TV. Those were the good times, the nights I was glad something else was being broken. What does it mean when someone long dead still frightens you? What does it mean when you still want to kill them? When my mother died, I remember the last time she seemed alive. 8 years ago, she tricks me into bringing her back for one last look. Within 43 seconds before the dented wall my father bequeathed She shouts her purpose into the space between her hands, a space she refuses to vacate, even as she sees teeth sprouting from its walls. She is 50 years younger, and so am I, making a fist in my Tweety bird mittens. The car arrives. I make a basket of my arms to carry her down the steps. 1978 burns my lips. The revenge of time is becoming the person who once tortured you. Her illness, a pastoral side by Frida. The path opens between mountains, sweating pinholes, all light becoming liquid, feeling no time, no thing, then everything. Bedroom with rocks and hooded hills, dips and pitted rivers, sudden walls, floor burned at the center, without flame, without working electric, when her hand begins to shake. Where did I become responsible? Was it the square of linoleum I fill when I sign her papers? Or was it the cabinet where I alphabetize the lie? We live in flecks of static etched into ancient shellac topographies. My wife leads me barefoot to a salted road, children pinching sunlight the afternoon before collapse. No door chain tensing against fist, just interval of ice cream without chrome. Chantal Ackerman committed suicide 2 days before No Home Movie 2015 premiered in New York. No Home Movie is Ackerman's last film. It is made up of conversations with her mother, Natalia. Most are in person, some virtual, all displaying a mutual love undiminished by circumstance. Mother and daughter, two halves of a free port known as refuge. For me, who has seen most of Ackerman's work, it was nice to meet the woman who gave a 25-year-old the courage to create Jeanne Dielman, 1975. It made me wonder what I'd be had I a mother who wanted me to be anything more than a device for cleaning windows. Ackerman knew how lucky she was, but also realized no matter how long she talked, Maman was never taking her to Auschwitz, not saying what she had to leave there in order to get back. In No Home Movie's final scene, Ackerman ties her shoes in her mother's empty apartment. When she exits through an adjoining room, the closing seconds fill with labored breathing, sobs, but also the rattle of her own life ending. Grief is not love asked to stop loving. Grief is love that never got a chance to live. In our age, grief is given a decimal point. 73,175.2 steps to my mother. 171,283.4 steps to my father. 65,894.3 steps to the asphalt in front of my grandmother's where my father beat me. 73,075.2 steps to the floor her body warmed for 36 hours. No app to measure how far we were from each other when we were failing. Them as parents, me as someone they'd love enough to be better versions of themselves. He holds the purse over his head, empties it on the rug. Lipstick, compacts, wallet, papers, knots of Kleenex, an unused tampon, everything tumbling out in a pile at his feet. "You vegetable bitch," he shouts at the pile, and she still laughing when he throws the empty sleeve of fake leather at her. And me standing there, waiting for her to do something, say something. And she not doing anything, not saying anything, except looking at me, laughing like what happened to someone on TV. And me following him upstairs. "You leave her alone," I say with a wobble. And him laughing, me grabbing the hammer from my room, the hammer I used to put a padlock on my bedroom door, me looking between the hammer and his head, hair thick around the ears, the top of his head shining, the outline of skull whispering at the temple, and me considering the good I could do. The hammer breaking his head apart, no blood, no brains, just the hammer and the claw. The hammer turns itself around after each strike, smashing and tearing, smashing and tearing. His curses vibrate my cheeks, the hammer removing an unwanted wall, allowing us to see to the other side of the house. Tonight is the 3rd anniversary of my mother's death. The final stage of grief isn't acceptance. The final stage is invisibility. A country that no longer exists, although everyone buried beneath can still feel each step. Thank you.
Thank you so much, William. That was really powerful. Thank you so much. Up next, we have Marybeth Luing.
Hello.
Hi, Marybeth. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Welcome to all of you. This is just a powerful experience. I said the word powerful off while my microphone was still muted at the same time you did, Francis. So meeting of minds there. You know, I'm going to try something different, although my error message is saying host disabled participant from screen sharing. And to do my thing, I have to screen share. So I don't know if you can fix that or not. I'm trying. I have a recorded poem that I read while my trio, jazz improv trio, played improv behind my poem. It's a rough mix. We'll be doing some remix. But while you figure that out, and I can read it without the band.
I think I just fixed it. So see if you can share your screen now. Okay.
So a little bit about myself, and I will slow down my rapid speech. I am in St. Paul, excuse me. I'm in St. Paul and am a member at the Creator Space, an artist member as of only December, but an artist all of my life. Most active in music most of that time, teaching and performing generally classical chamber music. But interests have always been in writing and in poetry, and at an early point and now a much later point in fiber arts, working with paint and collage. So I'm having a great time here at Creator Space. There's wonderful spots for me here. I have been a hired garden hand, and one mentor advocate of me getting more intensely into my poetry writing is, I think known to this group, is Mimi Jennings, who, as I did gardening work for her, I ventured bringing one of my poems one day, and she was very complimentary, so I appreciated that. I have been a very infrequent reader at local poetry readings when people were gathering in groups. I guess just not yeah, that's all I need to say. I just had been very infrequent, so my poems have not been out and about too much. The band behind me on this, oops, I lost all of us. The band behind me on this recording, if I get it lined up here, is a trio. We call ourselves In 8. And In 8 is myself on flute and, let's get this opened up. Flute and voice, and let's see if I can do two things at once. That's not usually a good idea for me. And on keyboards, Bobby Haig, also an artist here at Creator Space that I met in December, and another friend, Elliot Harris, who Backbeat Harris, who plays keyboards, percussion. Session has expired. I think we're going to have technical problems here. So maybe I'll just read it instead. Let's do that. I don't want to try and.
If you can, you could post maybe the recording, if you're able to the Minneapolis Poetry Sanctuary Facebook page, and you could also put it in the comments if that's possible.
Sure, let's do it that way so we don't take time here, because that's going to be much more successful, I'm sure. Okay, so reading it. The poem is called Mississippi River Introspect, which I wrote about 6 or 7 years ago, as I took some hideaway time for myself on a at the houseboat houseboat B&B along St. Paul shore there. So, Mississippi River Introspect. A great river flows, as it does every day, shimmering. The old mystic beckons. We tarry, we daydream, being casually alive. No, a mask. Stippled patterns steering drifting thoughts as the great river flows there. To a murky depth we must each go. Beneath the flash, where the flesh of loss lies stained, grief is remastered, reshaped, softened into a graceful, fantastically skewed memory, stillborn mystery, nourishing decay cloaked carefully under a brightly sparkling surface, perceived to be clean and cunningly allure. No, an illusion. Rolling on by and by and by. Goodbye swells up, roaring loudly, briefly. Then the strong current swallows out the out loud crying. In mid crescendo, the great river passes on, unperturbed by this noisy grief, not deflected from its roll, nor ashamed as it burbles. Good be with you. Good may you find, by and by. A reckoned sparkle remains, held in mind faithfully as the cursed undertow claims the next hope, and the next, and the next. Snatched away while dancing with me as if to the rhythm of my heart, the great mystic casually bears each one away, ripple by ripple. Anchored we gaze absently, assured, savvy, as we spy again the great river. Do we see it? Hold on, I gotta move some. As we spy again the great river, do we see? It will go on, vital, ebbing, concealing, exposing, finally healing, as it does every day. Having problems here. The old mystic chatters and dances about, calling wisdom to come, partner up, don't slack, step to the dance. From a distant time and place, a verb out of a noun is born. The mask is torn. Thank you. Thank you. I actually have one much lighter poem. Interesting to me, we have all brought poems about grief or in some way about grieving. Not that any of us organized that in advance, but I have one that is lighter. And it's called A Poem for Kate and Jazz and Jimmy. Kate being my daughter, Jazz and Jimmy being her dogs. And it is in memory of my own dog, Percy, and a moment that he and I had that left me laughing. I think I wrote this about 5 years ago, and I completely lost it. Had no recollection whatsoever of it until Facebook offered me a memory. There was my poem. Do the poets know when they craft balanced lines, match the metaphors, evoke a strong color scheme, or cleverly recall an aroma to invoke a memory? Do the poets know as they build the arc of tension in their poem, bearing the reader through a journey of places or times or emotions, to then deftly deliver the appreciative reader back to the place from which they began, now with a greater understanding of another view or of another time or place? Do the poets know, in reality, their poetic lines flowing sweetly by are being challenged and disrupted as dog quietly approaches and plops the fuzzy pink ball on top of the page, asking the reader to toss it across the room again so dog can retrieve it again and again and again? And that is in honor of my beloved dog Percy no longer with me. Thank you all.
Did you have another poem, Marybeth? Or
I do. It's another dark one.
and that's
Should we
okay.
should we go back there? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, hold on. Let me get back to it. Where is my poem? Here it is. Okay. This one written a few years ago, and in fact, at the time when I was gardening with Mimi, or for Mimi, a portfolio full of my poems in progress written by hand, because that's what I did, and do still. Anyway, a portfolio left in my car, locked, but the window access was stolen, along with a handbag that had no money in it, but the portfolio had about 30 poems in it, and to me that was, of course, a huge, searing loss. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong poem here. Beg your pardon. Let me see if I can find where I put this one, because I had them all three lined up here ready to read. I am not seeing it. I think we might have to save that one for another time. How about we do that? I can't find, oh, here it is. Nope, that's not it either. I'm sorry, I can't find it. Let's not I must have closed it accidentally. Let's not delay here. I will look it up and post it on the page when we set up the follow-up.
Okay, thank you, Marybeth.
Yeah, I'm sorry to leave that unfinished, but it is a poem about all the poems I lost, and may happen to every one of us. As soon as I knew they were gone, and I wanted to remember something from them, they were gone from my head too. So, gone.
Well, I look forward to reading that poem and also seeing the poem along with the music that you were unable to share tonight. So
Thank you so much,
Marybeth. So we have Sue Rekenthaler. Are you here, Sue?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, did I say your last name correct?
Oh, I forget. Yes, you did. I forget that all of you. I am an organic vegetable from open mics that we've done together here in Illinois. I lived in Minnesota in the early 70s until 81. I have a son who has a vegan bodega in St. Paul, Eureka Compass, and is opening a vegan grocery store, hopefully by the first part of 2022. The first poem that I want to do is a love poem to my husband, and you saw him walking behind me earlier, getting a chunk of wood. We heat our house with wood. So this poem was for him. Love poem. Into his greenhouse filled with scavenged, make-do, secondhand, came one small woman. Frugal farmer cuts away part of a ladder, perfect ladder, almost new ladder, his bed. A sigh, he says, I thought the devil would be taller. The next poem is a poem I wrote for my son who is in St. Paul. We have been estranged now going on 19 years. A lot of my work, I write to deal with how I feel about that. This is called Pirate Mother's Lament. My black sheep boy left this crew years ago. The North Star called to him and off he sailed. No signal flags raised, no messages in a bottle, no shots fired into the night. Off he sailed. Treasure maps were sent to lure him back. Crumbs left in the woods to help him find his way should he return by land. Our lanterns always at the ready to keep him safe from the rocky shore should he come by sea. Our pirate ship stayed moored right where he left it. Days turned into years, waiting for words which never came, signals that were never answered. Our ship rocking gently against its anchor. Our sails are growing ragged now. The sea is getting ready to claim our ship. My wild black sheep boy left this crew years ago. Will the wind carry our cries to him? Will he seize our flares and return to us? The next poem I want to read is could be a trigger for people because it does deal with the topic of suicide. And it's titled Button Box. In the small rusted box, deep under the plastic and abalone and metal, nestles a Gillette razor blade. The blade resting there for over 35 years, not for trimming thread or cloth. Oh, not for that. The blade is for cleanly slicing a wrist, a vein from top to bottom, quick and clean. A gun would need a permit. Pills would need a prescription, but a blade, so simple, so timeless. A gun needs an explanation. Pills need an illness or maybe a shady connection, but a blade, if someone searches for a button in the box, no questions will be asked, easily dismissed as something for the thread. And that would not be a lie. It is for the thread, the thin thread between despair and hope, a metal insurance policy, God on its edge. The fire extinguisher you never want to use, but are comforted by its presence. Always in the button box. And my last poem, I do a lot of volunteer work with the homeless here in our county, and also with pastoral care for immigration detainees. Our county has a detention center for immigrants. I wrote this poem after discussion with 3 of the homeless people that I was working with. And it's titled Biking to Florida. Handsome Jason found his lost faith and is heading to Florida to find God. His mother has given her blessing. He is tired of the Illinois winter as a homeless man. Faith will carry him to the southern coast. Some extra supplies and cash will help too. Cross-eyed Josh is tired of the Illinois winter as a homeless man. He will follow Jason on his quest. Maybe Josh will find God and his lost faith in Florida. Maybe all he will find is sore muscles and another city that will chase away a cross-eyed homeless man. Strong and pretty Sherry found Jason and is heading to Florida to find the sun. God cannot be found in another Illinois winter. Faith cannot be found trekking from shelter to shelter. Josh and Jason say this is the road to a new start, a new life. Sherry says she can be homeless anywhere. Why not on the beach? Thank you.
Do you have any other poems for us, Sue, or was that what you have for tonight? Oh, I can't hear you if you're trying to talk.
That's all I wanted to share
Okay.
tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing these stories with us. Up next, we have Charlie Curry. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. It's a pleasure to be listening to these people writing down to their bones, and it's really a good way to spend an evening. as serious as the poems are, they touch our hearts and they're important. I have three for you. I write occasionally. I've been writing for a long time, but not consistently, which frustrates everybody I know. But at any rate, an old one, a brand new one, and one in between. This is the old one first. It's called Buckthorn. I've been told by my brother that he reads this every spring for reasons I do not know. Buckthorn. This is a fairly long poem in several sections. I'll pause in between each section. There's an epigraph. For every complex problem, there is a solution that is simple, straightforward, and wrong, from H.L. Mencken. There is little native here. Only one thing I see started out here, sprung from the ground because it belonged. Though immutable clay, unseen under grass, has not moved, it is not transformed. And trees, some old enough to be indigenous, one elm at least, preceded the farm this once was. But from clay and elms, a whole landscape is not made. There is nothing native here, not me, not the grass I rolled out, not the buckthorn thick around it, dark green leaves, copper skinned stems. One immigrant contemplates another. It is useful to review genealogies born of inattention. We all quit sometimes, impatient. Who wants to master mechanics of soil erosion, organic imbalances? Buckthorn began wherever it began, hemmed in by weather or chewing creatures or other plants. Here it grows hysterically, greedy for all the light, all the soil. I understand none of it, yet am drawn in against time allotted for the arcane. The lawn's edge, a border beyond which no attention strayed, too easy to focus on annual flats of petunias waiting for spring's last frost. Who noticed the genealogy of the woods beyond? Flat black land topping the clay begat the steel plow, begat turned over prairie, begat wind-pushed soil, begat buckthorn hedges, begat more buckthorn, and here it is, dense as now vanished prairie grass. Half-dead fountains, once graceful sprays of green, sheltering sprays, monochrome and dark. Pruning cannot restore it to itself. Each branch fights to a standstill, dies, tangled with another only half alive. It won't fall down by itself or die completely or go away. Even the deer won't eat it. My own begats bring me to this place. Rich black earth called my grandparents, could not hold my parents who drifted to cities, or me who drifted here, or my children far away now, drifting on their own dreams, leaving me with me voices now aged or dead that celebrate complexity, embrace hard questions, that hear the wildflowers now silent. Another epigraph. Then God said, let the earth produce fresh growth. Let there be on the earth plants bearing seed, fruit trees bearing fruit, each with seed according to its own kind. Genesis 1:11. So it was spoken on the third day. We moved in more recently. Raspberries greeted us, hickory nuts, gooseberries, wild roses, and wildflowers. There were ferns and cedar trees, all among the poplar and the sumac and the elms. There was also buckthorn, or at least there was probably buckthorn, or at least we didn't plant any, or at least we didn't know. Since it was our own garden, lacking only a tree of wisdom, we said it was good, just the way it was. Another epigraph, this from an old grower's catalog. Buckthorn, attractive berries all summer long, rapidly develops into narrow columns, thornless. The woods were already dense. In summer, we lived as if in a deep woods cabin, even though there were neighbors enough from the very beginning. How good it was to be surrounded by thick leaves and green, green and green and yet another green. How good to not see what color houses were, whether curtains were open, whether neighbors watched TV or us. Well, how good to hear the rain on leaves, the various green leaves and windows open at night. On the roof rain in and on a different pitch. And thinking nature would nurture itself, we left it to grow as it would. Another horticultural website, buckthorn, ecological threat. Exotic buckthorn tends to form dense, even-aged thickets, crowding and shading out native shrubs and herbs, often completely obliterating them. What is it about time that changes things? Gathering data, perhaps, information from data, perhaps, hard experience, more likely. For decades, seductive dark green leaves, green early, still green when they drop, long after all else, worked their strangling roots around everything. Fewer greens than none but one, with snake-like bark, copper when wet, foundational plant, fundamentalist plant, the one true plant, no other plant before it. Leans for support on stronger, straighter trees, then greedy for light takes it all. Neither crabgrass nor sumac can break the root pack. An epigraph from a herbologist's website. Buckthorn's astrology is under the influence of Saturn. Taskmaster of the zodiac, controller of bones and hard work, look on me now, dragging stalks of buckthorn, saw and poison close at hand. As the stump count grows, so does the outline of the neighboring house, an outbuilding we didn't know was there. The contour of the hillside emerges, geometries and topographies revealed. Are the oaks along the street really in a row after all? Lost toys are unearthed. Recovery. Raspberries come back. Wildflowers come back. Sumac emerges, but does not dominate. Its leaves so red in fall. And this is a brand new one. It's intended to be part of a much longer piece. And I recommend that you look this guy up. He's a real guy, and it's a very bizarre person. And he's actually responsible for modern police force stuff. And he was in the 1780s to about 1830s. The name is Jeremy Bentham, and that's the name of this poem. The blue glass eyes he carried around in his pocket before he died. Afterwards, a botched embalming left his head dark orange, the skin smoked nearly black in places, cheeks sinking into his skull like an overripe apple dissolving back to nature. The eyes, the blue glass eyes made his face less misbegotten. For a century and a half he sat, was made to sit, in his favorite chair, his bones articulated by copper wire joints, a wax replica of his likeness perched on his shoulders, dressed in an like an oversized doll in the style of his day. Black coat, tan breeches, white cravat, wide-brimmed straw hat, a cane angled against his thigh behind his leathered cranium at his feet. He called himself an auto icon, academic for self-image on display, perched in a wooden case that could be wheeled to parties or faculty meetings at University of College London. A few years ago, he was moved to the Student Union in a hermetically sealed case where moth and rust do not corrupt. No one knows why he did this. A reimagining of eternal life by an atheist, an example of donating his body to science even though he wanted it back, an apology for a failed philosophy, affirming humanity he sometimes had difficulty connecting with, a last practical joke. He didn't explain it. It was power of mind over mind. Actual people only muddle the equation. It's best to leave them out. And lastly, and now for something completely different. And it's still sort of the Christmas season. This is sort of a Christmas poem. Minnesota, 2 a.m. Christmas morning. One luminary still burning, the rest rained out. Scant snow washed away, guttering down the street. No streetlights in the quiet night, just one lone candle. Soft flame encased in brown paper, the bag thoroughly wet, still upright. Puddle of light, lambent in rainwater. I can't remember why we were up so late or why we stepped outside to survey the darkness. Only how right it was that one light remained, waiting to say goodnight, hoping for the dawn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie Curry. Your poems really spoke to me. Thank you. So we have a woman who was able to join us last minute. Her name is Sarah Degner Riveros. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Francis, for organizing, and thank you for everyone for reading tonight. Our semester starts tomorrow, so I'm going to read a poem that's about beginning of the semester. It's called In Bocca al Lupo, which is Italian for Into the Mouth of the Wolf, which is the Italian way of saying, good luck, break a leg. In Bocca al Lupo. Inside the gray cabinet, a pile of old graded exams, names once forgotten, now recalled. Late work books are always graded last, never returned by the end of the term. Your name etched in a dark corner under lamplight late in the semester when you decided to give it a go. A burst of vitality, this flash of words and light pressured on the page. Mementos of culture, kitchen, family, labor, leisure. No one says break a leg before an exam. No one wishes you well as you go into the mouth of the wolf. My next poem is more lighthearted, a little less sinister. It's Praising Bull Terriers. We might hear from a bull terrier. This is for Oscar, Tofu, and Spike. Ribs showing, tail wagging, ears pointing. You jump in greeting and begin to pee. As soon as breakfast ends, you want more. No sooner do I sit in a chair than you're in my lap, wiggling your way to a hug. When you see an animal, squirrel, cat, chicken, your muscles tense. You pull until you shake. You are a trembling puddle of muscles and nerves, excitement to the center of your solid core. Your horse nose face is scarred from bumping in and out through doors. You push your way in, slither past, and stake your claim in the middle of every bed, every room, every heart. The world is yours. You take up space, hunker down to defend those you protect as you beg for more love. My children say that I love Spike more than I love them, but that's not true. But it's Spike is not to be ignored. Next, I'd like to share Taco Tuesdays. This is the restaurant that we missed the most during this pandemic. This is for Don Miguel. On Tuesdays at La Palmita, the whole east side shows up for tacos de $1. Don Miguel, el de la grúa, leaves his tow truck parked out back to serve plates hot. Construction guys, dressed in bright yellow vests, piden 10 para llevar. Parents show up with chamacos in hats and socks, coats unzipped. The wait is an hour easy, but the tacos, $1. And the salsa verde is that good. Mom with magenta hair laughs loud, whispers in her daughter's braids as they wait together in line. It's long. Mama hugs her son. Can we get horchata? No, not today. It's Tuesday. 30 tacos de asada para llevar. The wait's worth it. We stay, meet our neighbors, sit still mirando Televisa. In the realism of a working mama's urban survival kit, tacos are a cheap magic trick. Okay, and this poem is called When the Revolution. When the revolution comes to St. Paul, I want to be on the side of a child from Saigon who remembers how to hide under the platform bed, feeding jasmine rice to toy soldiers when bombs fall. I want to be on the side of a Peruvian weaver who kept accounts of Cuna wool shawls when Sendero Luminoso exploded a bus in Miraflores. Beside a baker of tres leches cakes and pan dulce, maker of tortas with avocados, mayonnaise, eggs, and beans. With the chicken farmer from the highlands of Guatemala, who in Civil War hid the night beneath the belly of a pickup, picked shrapnel from his thigh as morning dawned in El Monte. When the revolution comes to St. Paul, Minnesota, wrapped in tortillas, in banh mi, fear, pupusas, worry, injera, hunger, and tamales. When it all falls in, I want to be with you.
Do you have another poem, Sarah?
I'm scrolling through to see. I had one more that I could share if I can find it. Here it is. I wrote this one during the pandemic for some relief workers in the hospital for some care packages. This poem is called Let There Be. Tomorrow, let there be nothing but clean floors, dusted shelves, folded towels, and empty basements. Let there be plumbers, nurses, carpenters, mechanics, caregivers, and firefighters to fix things as soon as they break. Let there be singers, guitarists, cooks, dancers, and pianos. Grand pianos that shake the floor with jazz. Let there be carpet without stains, dogs that don't scratch, and silent vacuum cleaners that work. Let there be trees with heavy canopies of leaves and abundant fruit, but no fruit flies. Let there be freezers with shelves and pantries to store up goodness, and dusted lids that fit tight, and labels for everything. Let there be neighbors with names who stand at the fence and wave, and dogs that wag their tails. Let there be nothing but sky with butter for clouds and mouths full of air.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I love your poems. Now I want tacos, and pets are just, they're the best. And I've loved the few poems tonight about our beloved pets. So thank you so much, Sarah. And Marybeth was able to find the poem that she couldn't find earlier. So she is gonna read that now.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to read my lost poem about lost poems. So it had been filed with the wrong title. It is In the Space Left Between Us. Mississippi River introspect, dances with dignity, jazzman testifies, light, welcome, little one. Blue lady, we danced. You are the bad, cool. Passion, the dress is not white. Dances with my baby girl. Festival of Champions. Finished, typed, secured in a digital doc, stored on Goog in their fine cloud, without the shape of my cursive script, in a file labeled MB Poems. These poems are still with me, not lost, not tucked into a travel portfolio, porting my working poems journal, not taken during a car intrusion by 4 petty thieves, not discarded as worthless pages in the nearest dumpster, not carted away to a landfill by an early morning belching truck, tossed together with chicken wing bones, wasted C-store hot dogs, broken window fans, a wood lamp, old worn shoes with torn toes, designer handbags nearly new, probably also stolen, not sodden with last night's spilled beer washed over with fresh rain in the morning hours, not smashed up with unflushable feminine sanitary products, soaked tea bags, acrid coffee grounds, pest control bedbug traps, wadded up condoms, not fading from this poet's memory. I can't restore 3 lines intact from over 24 poems, the poet's mind screams silently. In progress for over 3 years, rewritten, written, labored over, gone in under 3 minutes, and gone. 1963 and a half, blue Ford Mustang. Is it a Mustang? I don't recall. Dresses well for being homeless, 53 faces of lost lives. Do the math, people can't pay for basics today. Rockabye babies. These poems were taking shape, just started or being revised with courageous strike-throughs of fine words and labored lines. Edited, set aside, reclaimed. One was nearly finished, just a bit of polishing, ready to be typed into the Goog file, MB Poems for safekeeping, until sent out into the world to find their own readers. These poems were taken from me by a quartet of malcontents with too much boredom, too little respect, who saw nothing of value in poetry journals. Just books and some black ink pens in a designer portfolio case with an artsy vibe. Farewell, my poems. May the peace abide in the space set between us. And I will close actually with saying that this poem was came about because Mimi encouraged me to write something to say farewell to my poems that were lost. I was coming to the gardening work at her place so grieved literally like week after week. And she finally just said, you got to write this and get it out of your head. So it did help.
Thank you so much, Marybeth. I love the idea of writing a poem to honor poems. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will read just a few quick ones since we have a few more minutes left. I'm Frances James. I'm the host and creator of Minneapolis Poetry Sanctuary. I have a website where I have my first book of poems called Lessard, and I have a children's book that I wrote. It's really lovely, with illustrations from a Minnesota artist. And I make jewelry, I do photography, anything creative. I do block printing, all of it I love. I do music, I have a CD. So you can find all of that on my website, fransartfromtheheart.com. There's no apostrophe in Franz. And I also have a Facebook page under the same name, and an Instagram page, and a blog on WordPress. Yeah, all under Franz Art from the Heart. Okay, this one is called The Earth. Grandma told me to go outside. It's the earth by her house, I remember. The white metal bench that burst at the tree's wavering waist. The perfect, nourished grass, thick like a heavy dinner. My feet wouldn't drown even if they could. I walked along the wall by birdseed and dry patches of ground. I thought I saw a snake, or maybe I dreamt it. This earth was my playground, and I was watchful, revisiting the same areas, making sure everything was found. This one is called Who I Am. I know now God isn't a man who can't love me. The same as how I know eating 2 bowls of ice cream is only a fantasy of the brain I can do without. I know I'm further from who I was and now closer to someone who smiles and believes it. I know going back, even a different way, still gets me to the same place I no longer want to stay. I know now horses mean more to me than a childhood dream, and dancing freely is medicine I need. I know the importance of the earth on my hands, clean air in my lungs, to sing without thought, only feeling. I know now what I love, and that makes me free. I know loving myself is a choice I make daily, and life will leave you where you are if you refuse to stand up for yourself. I know to listen for peace, to not wait for faith. I know rest isn't lazy, life isn't easy, and I'm the only person who can fix my crazy. I know letting go is sometimes letting live, and other times it's leaving behind what doesn't fit. All that matters is I found myself. I know now who I am. All right. And thank you so much. This one is called 7 Years. 7 years of our tiny lives, bracing fears, trying on hope that doesn't fit, and countless rewind goodbyes we swear to never recognize. Still 7 years, our willing hearts and wrestling bodies, 2 souls stitching, mending, undoing seams with thick line that closes, not redeems. Young and reckless, mature with madness, still no regrets. Relying on foolishness, our expertise, a famished damsel on her knees, yet love maintained. An upward vine reaching heights at better times, breaking for the worst to Novocaine the hurt, and lie about the love I doubt for 7 years. Inches pass and the choice we took. Our time together, though we're still not sure now whether I'll trust you if you trust me. The game we never won, though we'd rather be forever. I still wish life would bend to all my wishes, so I could revisit 7 more on repeat forevermore. Happily with you, but life is petty and dramatic, and I love you like you love other things. It's okay, I understand. The palmist said I had a pretty hand. I got dreams to live and life to survive. Still, I pray away the days I made you think you weren't enough for me. Because for 7 years, I never questioned why you had the very best of me. This one is called We Say. You say I'll never understand. You say your father died when you were 15. You say God is stupid, but mostly you don't say anything. I say you love the bottle more than me. I say I'm sorry. I say it's okay, you're just drunk, you'll be fine in the morning. We both yell into the glass wall between us, yet we rarely put our ears against to listen. This is love with you. We fight and grow and fear and brave. I say love isn't easy. You say you love me. I apologize. I maybe should have given a trigger warning with that one of alcoholism. I'm sorry about that. That one I haven't read before, so that's fun that I haven't read that one. So this one I wrote for my mother for Christmas. Well, actually, it was a poem that I had written several years ago, but then I ended up like revising it, and it became more of like prose or like a short story. But I made a block print that goes with it, and I framed it for my mom, so it's kind of cool. This one has a trigger warning. It talks about like self-harm and mental illness. It's called Christmas Lights. The Lakewinds Co-op parking lot is setting up to sell Christmas trees. Holiday classics play while I get my nails painted sparkly red at Anna's Nails across the street. Thanksgiving passed recently, and the snow has already arrived and settled in. Festive lights have begun to appear like newborn stars upon doorways, roofs, and street lamps, a tradition of hope amongst the dark, a mark of what is to come. It's that time of year. We remember, we celebrate the birth of our Savior, the awaited son of Joseph, and a Mother Mary who gave him life. Would you like to drive around the neighborhood to see this year's Christmas lights? My mother asked with enthusiasm, wishing a little joy were contagious. She would do anything to help me smile. I often turned down my mother's ideas or exercises to feel better. I'm not sure if it was teenage stubbornness or apathetic laziness. Regardless, I didn't have plans that evening, so I agreed out of boredom. My depression was severe that year. The wounds on my arms were still healing. Another hospital band was thrown into my bedroom trash. This was the season of joy to the world. I couldn't remember the last time I felt happy. My mother bundled up in her winter coat and boots and warmed up her van. I managed to squeeze on a fleece jacket over my sweatshirt, then a hat over my unwashed hair. The sun had set, but the sky was still a tender blue. I don't recall the specifics of where we drove or what we saw, except that my mom was right. The strings of colors were prettier than I had noticed. Some even beamed beneath a heavy heap of snow. Beside the woman who gave me life, We shared a glimpse of winter peace. Somehow, this was enough to help me want to stay. Every year, as strands of bulbs find their way back to shining among their homes, to the place they belong, I remember and celebrate the woman who saved me, who would never stop saving me, the woman who loved me every step of the way, my mother. Well, thank you all so much. This was really, I'm having a hard time finding the words because there was just so much emotion and just so much vulnerability, so much courage and strength in these stories and your sharings. And it was just a really, really meaningful evening. So thank you all so much. Tell your friends about the open mic, and I wish you all a good rest of your Sunday evening. So take care, and I hope to see you all again. Thank you.
Blessings, y'all.
Bye.